Good evening, my dear ones. Once again, I, Smita Chaudhary, am standing before you to take up a new chapter. Today, I'll take up a chapter for Standard 8 and let us see the story. This is my Advent on Mars. Generally, we find that we are very interested about aliens and so many stories that we do about aliens. So here is a story, an advent on Mars. So a person, when he goes to Mars, what is his experience? What all does he see? So let's see here, my advent on Mars. So this is written by John Carter and a former soldier. So he is mysteriously transported to Mars. So we don't know. Here the source is not given how he is transported to Mars. लेकिन अब मार्स में पहुंचने के बाद उसका क्या एक्सपीरियंस होता है, उसके साथ क्या होता है, आज हम देखते हैं इस चैप्टर में द माई एडवेंट ऑन मार्स. लेट्स सी. I opened my eyes upon a strange and weird landscape. So, weird is also strange. So, we see that John Carter, he says that when he went to Mars, he opened his eyes and it was a different landscape, totally different. अलग ही दुनिया में वो पहुंच गया था. He was transported to a new world and that was Mars. So, here I knew that I was on Mars. Not once did I question either my sanity or my wakefulness. So, he knew that he is on Mars. उसको पता था वो मार्स में पहुंच चुका है. अब वो अपना sanity is whether he is in his senses, proper senses. वो कहीं पागल तो नहीं हुआ? नहीं. वो उसको पता था कि वो पागल नहीं हुआ. उसको पता था कि वो मार्स में ही है और वो जगा हुआ है. ही इज वेकफुल. ही न्यू दैट ही इज वेकफुल. वो जगा हुआ था, उसको पता था. फिर आई वॉज नॉट अस्लीप. नो नीड फॉर पिंचिंग हियर. सो जनरली हम लोग क्या देखते हैं बच्चों कि अगर हम लोग को पता होना है अरे हम लोग कहीं सपना तो नहीं देख रहे हैं, सो हम लोग अपने आप को पिंच करके हम लोग देखते हैं या किसी को बोलते हैं हमको चूटी काटो दो. और सो वी सी दैट वी आर एक्चुअली वेकिंग, वेदर वी आर इन आवर सेंसेस या फिर कुछ हम लोग के साथ अलग ही हो रहा है. तो उसको ये ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ा कि चूटी काट के या पिंच करके ही शुड बी एबल टू नो whether he is asleep or he is waking up. So we find that here. So I just knew that I was on Mars, just as you know that you are on Earth. तो हम लोगों के पास कोई प्रूफ है कि हम लोग अर्थ में हैं? नहीं ना, कोई प्रूफ नहीं है. फिर भी हमें पता है कि हम लोग अर्थ में हैं क्योंकि हमारे पेरेंट्स भी बोले हुए. अब इसको भी पता था क्योंकि ये मार्स के तरफ गया था मिस्टीरियसली, वो उसको पहुंच गया था तो उसको पता था दैट ही इज ऑन मार्स. ही डिडंट हैव टू थिंक ऑफ इट. ही डिडंट हैव टू पिंच हिमसेल्फ in order to find out that whether he is in Mars or not, whether he is really awake or not, whether he is in the senses or not, whether he is not turned mad or what. Okay, I just knew that I was on Mars. You do not question the fact, neither did I. तो ये तो फैक्ट है. हम लोग जो चीज़ फैक्ट है उसको हम लोग क्वेश्चन नहीं करते हैं, उसको हम लोग एक्सेप्ट कर लेते हैं. और यही वो किया. वो भी एक्सेप्ट कर लिया कि वो मार्स में है. तो बच्चे हम लोग क्या जानते हैं कोई और प्लैनेट में कोई और विजिट किया है? आप लोग में से कोई गया है? एनी वन ऑफ यू हु हैव एक्सपीरियंस्ड एंड योर एक्सपीरियंस डिड यू ऑल हैव ऑन एनी अदर प्लैनेट? So let's see. But he is transported to Mars. Now let's see what happens with him. I found myself lying flat on a bed of yellowish moss-like vegetation which stretched around me in all directions for endless miles. For a stretch, long stretch. We find that it was the moss-like vegetation. Do you all know what is moss? Moss in the rainy season, you have those green moss and that is just like a carpet. You can feel that the green moss, but it is very slippery. So like that, as it appears like a carpet, as it appears very, means a smooth surface of green carpet sort of, similarly it was a bed of yellowish moss like vegetation, and it was stretching for a long distance, for the stretches, long stretches. We find that this moss was there. I seemed to be lying in a deep circular basin, along the outer end of which I could make out the irregularity of low hills. So he was in the center, okay, he was in a circular basin, and we find that it was the irregular low hills all around. That was the hills are there, but in the middle, in that flat land, he was लाइंग ओवर देयर. अचानक से वो पहुंच जाता है और वो फ्लैट लैंड में पड़े रहता है. तो और हिल्स भी इरेग्युलर, मतलब ऊंचा नीचा हिल्स दिख रहा था. इट वॉज मिड डे. The sun was shining upon me and the heat was rather intense. Yet it did not seem warmer than how it is on an Arizona desert. So, just as in desert, we know desert is very hot during the daytime and it is cold in the night. So, just as on an or Arizona desert, जितना गर्मी वो डेजर्ट में होता है उतना ही गर्मी वहाँ भी था. उसको कुछ अलग फील नहीं हुआ. He did not feel anything different. Here and there were slight outcroppings of quartz bearing rocks which glistened. Now, glistened is shining. So, quartz, it shines. So, here and there, from the long stretch of land, कहीं कहीं निकला हुआ था वो क्वार्ट्स, कोई रॉक्स जिसके ऊपर क्वार्ट्स का कवरिंग था, एंड वो इधर उधर से शाइन कर रहा था. बिकॉज इट वॉज क्वार्ट्स, यू ऑल नो व्हाट इज क्वार्ट्स, तो इसीलिए वो शाइन कर रहा था इन द सनलाइट. A little to my left, perhaps 100 yards away, I saw a low walled enclosure about 4 feet in height. तो एक बाउंड्री वॉल जैसा था 4 फीट का. तो एक एनक्लोजर था, एक जगह को एनक्लोज करके रखा गया था, एक जगह को बाउंड्री वॉल के बीच में जैसे रखा गया था. नो वाटर एंड नो वेजिटेशन other than the moss were evident. कहीं पानी नहीं दिख रहा था. Nowhere water, nowhere any other agricultural cultivation was going on, nowhere any vegetation could be seen, but it was the moss. Only the moss was there. Feeling a little thirsty, I decided to explore my surrounding. Now he knows that he has reached Mars. अब थोड़ा चल के देखा भी जाए कहाँ पानी है, because he was already thirsty. So he started exploring that land. He started finding out what all is there in Mars, which all places are there. So let us see how the planet is. तो वो खोज खबर लेने लगा, पानी का खोज करने लगा. Springing to my feet, I received my first Martian surprise. तो पहला surprise, कुछ धमाका, कुछ दिखा, something different. So it was the first Martian surprise. तो मार्च में पहला surprise मिला. My effort to merely stand up as I did when on earth carried me high into the air. So we know that gravitational force is maximum on earth. लेकिन बाकी सब कहीं और जाओ तो एक पैर उठाने से वो हवा में तैरता हुआ इंसान ऊपर चले जाता है. ग्रेविटेशनल फोर्स नहीं है और पैर को हाथ से पकड़ के नीचे लाना पड़ता है so that you are able to keep your feet safely on the soil. So he felt this. So what was it? It carried him into the air. Thankfully, I landed softly on the ground without much of a jolt. Jolt is jerk. So without jerk, he landed on the earth. So it's not earth, on the soil. I realized that I needed to learn to walk all over again. So just like a small child. So बच्चे कैसे चलते हैं? बच्चे गिरते पड़ते, उठ के खड़े होते हैं, फिर गिर जाते हैं, फिर कोशिश करके. सो जैसे बच्चे सीखते हैं खड़ा होना, वैसे ही he needed to learn now. He would require to learn how to stand up. Okay, so you find that he has to learn to walk over again, which carried me easily and safely on Earth, played strange antics with me on Mars. Now, strange antics means strange tricks. Tricks were being played on him on Mars. So the soil, नया सॉइल है, नई जगह है, नया आचार व्यवहार, खड़े होना भी सीखना पड़ेगा. सो न्यूली ही वॉज अगेन लर्निंग ऑल दीज थिंग्स. सो मन नहीं हो रहा है कि मार्स थोड़ा जाके घूम के आया जाए, हम लोग भी थोड़ा हवा में तैर के आए. सो द फीलिंग मस्ट बी वेरी सेंसेशनल. वी आर ऑल्सो फीलिंग, मन तो हो रहा है कि अभी उड़ के जाए और मार्स पहुंचे और देखे कि जगह कैसे है. तो ये नरेटर क्या क्या एक्सपीरियंस किया होगा. सो लेट्स सी. Instead of moving in a sensible and dignified manner, my attempt to walk was like a variety of hops. So generally you find bade insan, the big people, when they become old, so we walk in a dignified manner. We have a grandeur of our own. हम लोग पूरा सभ्यता के साथ चलते हैं. But वो वैसे नहीं चल पा रहा था वहाँ. He was not able to. What was he doing? He was nearly like hopping. He was hopping. तो उसका चलना नहीं हो रहा था. पैर उठाने से ऊपर उठ जा रहा था, फिर मेहनत के साथ पैर को नीचे लाना पड़ रहा था. तो वो देख के लग रहा था कि he is hopping. Now, so it was like a variety of hops which took me clear off the ground, and I landed on my face or back at the end of each second or third hop. So 2 or 3 hops he would do, and then he would fall down on the ground. Okay, so either on his face he would fall down or back he would be falling down. My muscles, which were used to the force of gravity on Earth, were finding it difficult to cope with the lesser gravitational force and lower air pressure on Mars. So now वी आर एडजस्टेड. हम लोग का तो अभी बचपन से यही है, तो एडजस्ट हो गया अर्थ के साथ. उसका भी मसल्स एडजस्ट हो गया था अर्थ के साथ, एंड इट वॉज रियली डिफिकल्ट फॉर हिम टू एडजस्ट. अब कम ग्रेविटेशनल फोर्स में एडजस्ट होना टाइम लग रहा था. ही वॉज फीलिंग इट अ लिटिल डिफिकल्ट. सो आई वॉज डिटरमाइंड however to explore the enclosure, which was the only evidence of habitation inside, and so I decided to drop on all fours and creep towards it. लेकिन मन तो बना लिया था. He was determined. He was having the grit and determination that he is going to explore this place. And so walking was difficult. पैर एक उठाओ तो पूरा बॉडी ऊपर उठ जा रहा था. So walking was difficult. So what he did, he started crawling. जैसे baby crawl करता है ना, on all the 4 legs and hands. So he started also crawling on all the 4s and creep towards that enclosure. वो enclosure के अंदर, वो boundary wall के अंदर क्या है? तो ये तो अब उसके अंदर में भी anxiousness, curiosity जग रहा था. He wanted to know what is there inside. And so I did fairly well, and in a few moments reached the low encircling wall of the enclosure. So crawl करके वो पहुंच गया at the end of that enclosure. अब क्यूरियोसिटी तो हम लोग सबको होता है, हर चीज़ में उत्सुकता, जानने की इच्छा. अब वो गया है नया प्लैनेट पे, तो जानने की इच्छा तो उसमें और ज़्यादा प्रबल है. ही वॉन्ट्स टू नो what is there inside that wall. So there were no doors or windows on the side nearest to me. As the wall was about 4 feet high, I cautiously raised myself and peered over the top. So now you find that no doors, no windows. Now he caught hold of the wall and he raised himself like this to see what is there inside. And he peered over the top. So over the wall he peeped inside to see what is there. Now, through the thick glass roof, I saw the strangest sight that I had ever seen. There were several hundred large eggs, 2.5 feet in diameter, perfectly round and snowy white. 2.5 feet, 1 feet is 12 inch. That means your long scale is 12 inch. So 2.5 feet, can you think of? So it will be this much long. So this much big was the egg, totally snowy white, totally white in color. And so he sees there several hundreds of these eggs were there. 5 or 6 eggs had already hatched and strange creatures sat blinking in the sunlight. So just then only those eggs had hatched and eggs फूट के उसके अंदर से small creatures निकले हैं and these creatures वो तो इतना देर एग के अंदर था तो देखने में दिक्कत हो रहा था सनलाइट गिर रहा था सो दे वर ब्लिंकिंग सो सनलाइट के अंदर से देखने में सनलाइट में देखना बहुत मुश्किल हो रहा था सो they had big heads with little scrawny bodies, long necks and 6 legs, or as I learnt afterwards, 2 legs and 2 arms with a pair of limbs in between. So it appeared to be like 6 legs, 2 arms, 2 legs, and in between it was 2 limbs. Their eyes were set at the extreme sides of the head. Eyes were at the extreme end. So think of a creature which we have not seen, we can only guess. So think about it, make it pictures. So picture जैसा दिमाग में सेट कर लीजिए कैसे दिख रहा होगा. And so two eyes at the extreme sides of the head, a little above the center. The eyes jutted out in such a manner that they could be moved either forward or backward. So eyes, they were jutting out. You all have seen. So Tom and Jerry, Tom का आँख निकल के आता है. So it was jutting out. So either it was forward, you can move, or backward. And also independently of each other. अगर एक आँख इस साइड देख रहा है एक आँख उस साइड भी देख सकता है. So independently दोनों आँख का कोऑर्डिनेशन नहीं चाहिए. हम लोग अगर एक साइड देखते हैं तो दोनों आँख एक ही साइड जाता है, दूसरे साइड देखते हैं तो दोनों आँख दूसरे साइड जाता है. बट यहाँ उन लोग का कोऑर्डिनेशन नहीं चाहिए था. अगर एक इस साइड देख रहा है तो दूसरा इस साइड भी देख सकता है. ओके, एक नीचे देख रहा है तो दूसरा ऊपर भी देख सकता है. सो दिस काइंड ऑफ eyes they had, thus allowing the creature to look in any direction or in 2 directions at once. So it can see 2 directions all together. Together they can see without turning its head. So we have to generally turn our heads, but here the creatures are as such, they don't have to turn the heads, but they can see. The ears were small, cup-shaped antenna. So ears, very small ears they had, and they had the cup-shaped antenna. Okay, jutting out about an inch on these young specimens. So it was jutting out. Outside it was the antenna. Previously you used to see the small televisions, or you have the used to have the mobile phones where the antenna was up. So that kind of antenna was there on top. Okay, and so their nose were longitudinal slits. So it was a cut, just a longitudinal slit. Okay, in the center of their faces, midway between their mouths and ears. So mouth and ears, in between there was a slit. There was no hair on their light yellowish green bodies. Body color क्या था? Yellowish green. And yellowish green पे body पे कोई बाल नहीं था. Later I saw that the color deepened to an olive green in adults and was darker in males than females. Now males on females, हम लोग maybe you see that males and females body structure is a little different, skin type also a little different. So there also for them it was olive green in adults and it was darker in males. Males, they had dark skin. The color was dark than that of the females. Further, the heads of the adults were not so out of proportion to their bodies as in the case of the young ones. So you find that even the young ones were quite different from that of the elders. So, as I stood watching the hideous little monsters break from their shells, I did not notice the approach of a score of full grown Martians from behind me. Now he was seeing how the eggs are hatching, how the little ones are coming out, how do these little ones look like. तब तक देखते देखते पीछे से वन स्कोर मीन्स बोलो मैथ्स करते हो तो वन स्कोर मीन्स 20. So 20 creatures, they were full grown Martians. They were coming towards him from behind. Coming as they did over the soft and soundless moss, they might have captured me easily, had it not been the rattling of the accoutrements of the first warrior. So, in look, आस्ते they were coming, soft, soundless, कोई बिना आवाज बन किए इन लोग सब आ रहा था उसके तरफ. And they could have trapped him also, caught hold of him, पकड़ लेता, लेकिन वो जो ड्रेस और इक्विपमेंट जो वॉरियर्स पहना था उसका आवाज हो गया. इट मेड अ रैटलिंग नॉइज और इससे पता चल गया नरेटर को कि कोई तो पीछे है, कोई कुछ तो आवाज हुआ. सो ही सॉ व्हाट वाज दैट साउंड. द साउंड अलर्टेड मी. I turned around and to my great alarm saw, not 10 feet away, the point of a huge spear, 40 feet long and tipped with gleaming metal. So now a huge spear that they were having. And kitna lamba? 40 feet. Can you think of? So 1 feet is 12 inches, one long scale I told you. And so 40 feet long. And वो shine कर रहा था. Gleaming is shining. That metal was shining. It was held low at the side of a huge mounted replica of the little monsters that I had been watching. So they were keeping it at the side, held low at the side of a huge mounted replica, the exact copy. So they were all having they were on just like mounted like on the horse, and an exact copy of that little monsters that he had been watching. So, but how puny and harmless they now seemed compared to this huge and terrific incarnation of hate, of vengeance, and of death. Now, these appear to be so small. उन लोग का hatred, उन लोग का revengefulness, उन लोग इतना ज़्यादा था रिवेंजफुल एटीट्यूड, हेट्रेड. उसके हिसाब से वो क्रीचर्स तो इतना छोटा था, क्रीचर्स इतना छोटा, लेकिन हेट्रेड इतना. हाउ ही कुड हैव थॉट ऑफ. द मैन हिमसेल्फ, फॉर सच आई मे कॉल हिम, वॉज 15 feet in height. सो ये मार्शियंस, दे कितना लंबा था? 15 feet they were in height, and on earth would have weighed around 400 pounds. So weight kitna? 400 pounds they might have weighed had it been on earth. Agar earth pe hota to un log ka weight 400 pounds hota. His two left arms were outstretched laterally to help him balance on the thing he rode, as there were no bridle or reins to hold on to. Now you find that, so यू ब्रिडल होता है घोड़े पे, जैसे हम लोग पकड़ते हैं, पकड़ के घोड़ा को कंट्रोल करते हैं. बट हियर दे डिड नॉट हैव एनीथिंग एज सच. ओके, सो दे डिड नॉट हैव. सो द मैन हिमसेल्फ, फॉर सच आई मे कॉल हिम, वॉज 15 feet, and then two left arms were outstretched. So they kept their arms like this, outstretched. Why? To balance, because We hold the horse and so we do not fall down from that horse. But how to balance? So they used to keep the hands laterally out to help him to balance on the thing he rode. As there were no bridle or reins, so those straps of the horses were not there to control. A broad flat tail, large at the tip than at the root. So एक tail था लंबा सा and वो broad था, चपटा थोड़ा, broad था, thick था, and जहाँ tail start हो रहा है वहाँ thin, वहाँ पे थोड़ा सा पतला, लेकिन at the end वो चौड़ा जाता था. Okay, so we find that this is the description given of those creatures over there. So, and behind him, first charging demon trailed 19 others. So now you find that the demon was there and 19 others were following, like these creatures. So this kind of creatures, 19, 20 of them, one ahead and 19 behind him. And his mount, how can earthly words describe it? It tore 10 feet at the shoulder, had 4 legs on either side, a broad flat tail, larger at the tip than at the root, and a gaping mouth which split its head from its snout to its long, massive neck. This whole paragraph is the description, physical appearance. Kaisa dikhta tha. So you find that 4 legs on either side are there, 4 legs. ब्रॉड टेल था, अभी जो डिस्क्राइब किए कि रूट में वो ज़्यादा पतला, रूट में पतला था एंड टिप में ज़्यादा चौड़ा था. एंड ही हैड अ गेपिंग माउथ, ओपन माउथ, गेपिंग माउथ, वाइड ओपन द माउथ वॉज, विथ स्प्लिट इट्स हेड. सो माउथ जैसे डिवाइड कर रहा था हेड को, फ्रॉम द स्नाउट टू इट्स लॉन्ग मैसिव नेक. सो नोज से ये नेक वो डिवाइड कर रहा था माउथ. दिस पिक्चर विच आई हैव डिस्क्राइब्ड इन सच डिटेल मेड बट वन टेरिबल एंड स्विफ्ट इम्प्रेशन ऑन मी एज आई टर्न टू मीट इट, अनआर्म्ड एज आई वॉज. नाउ एक इम्प्रेशन बना दिया था वो जो टोटल डिस्क्रिप्शन दिया इन क्रीचर्स का. सो एक इम्प्रेशन हम लोग के अंदर वो छोड़ दिया. एंड ही डिड नॉट हैव एनी वेपन्स विद हिम, दिस नरेटर. So unarmed as I was, my first reaction was to flee. तो क्या करता? So इतना warriors पीछे आ रहा था, उसको पकड़ लेता. So he ran away. Flee means वो भाग गया वहाँ से. There was no other way for him. So I gave a very earthly and at the same time superhuman leap to reach the top of the Martian incubator. अब एक leap, he jumped up. And then, so superhuman jaise, as you have Superman, no, superhuman, like that he gave a leap and he reached on top of that incubator. So there, what is an incubator? Where these eggs, getting the warmth, they were hatching. My effort was crowned with a success, which stunned me as much as it seemed to surprise the Martian warriors. So ये देख के Martian warriors बहुत सरप्राइज हो गया, ऐसा कूदा कि ऊपर तक पहुंच गया. एंड वो इंक्यूबेटर के ऊपर, एंड वो खुद भी हैरान था. ही हैड नॉट एक्सपेक्टेड कि वो इतना कूद सकता है. फॉर इट कैरिड मी 30 feet into the air and I landed 100 feet away from my pursuers. Pursuers, those who chase. So 100 feet दूर चले गया था, जो उसके पीछे लगा हुआ था, जो उसको चेस कर रहा था, उन लोग से दूर. He had gone on the opposite side of the enclosure. So this enclosure, this boundary which was there, on the opposite side he landed by doing this. So this is a text from a Princess of Mars. We find that this entire story is from the Princess of Mars. It is a novel and it is a classic. It is supposed to be a science fiction. Okay, so it is telling us about Mars. It is telling us about how the Martian people, the alien, if you imagine the alien on Mars, this is the way you can imagine. It is a science fiction where Mars is described, gravitational force is described, but it's made such lively so that we all enjoy his trip and we can imagine how he must have felt. Rather, we are taking a trip with him into Mars. So I hope children you must have loved this story. Thank you. Have a good day.